The last signal the garden world burns Nexer Prime had been called the Garden of the Galaxy for good reason. Its 3 purple suns cast gentle light across endless meadows of silver grass that sang in harmonious whispers when the wind touched them. Crystal cities rose like flowers from the landscape, their walls transparent and filled with flowing water that created music as it moved through specially carved channels. The Nexarian people themselves were tall, graceful beings with skin that shimmered like pearl and eyes that held the wisdom of 1,000 peaceful years. They had never known war. Their history books spoke only of art, philosophy, and the careful tending of their world's incredible beauty. Children learned to paint before they learned to walk, and every adult could compose music that would bring tears to the eyes of any listener. The Nexarians believed that violence was a disease of primitive minds, something that evolved civilizations had left behind long ago. That belief died on the morning when the sky caught fire. Zara Kef was working in the Grand Communication Center when the first explosions lit up the horizon. She was young even by Nexarian standards, barely 200 years old, with silver hair that flowed like liquid starlight and eyes the color of deep ocean. Her job was to monitor the ancient communication arrays, massive structures left behind by some forgotten civilization that had once spanned the galaxy. Most of the equipment hadn't been used in centuries. The Nexarians preferred their peaceful isolation. The building shook violently, and Zara's delicate fingers froze over the control panel. Through the crystal walls, she could see ships descending from space. They were not the curved, beautiful vessels that occasionally visited Nexer Prime for trade. These ships were angular and black, covered in spikes and weapon ports that glowed with hungry red light. They moved like predators, fast and aggressive, diving toward the defenseless cities below. Elder Morin, Zara whispered into her communication device. Something terrible is happening. The response came immediately, but it was not the calm, measured voice she expected. Instead, she heard screaming in the background and a sound of explosions. Zara, child, listen to me carefully. Elder Morin's voice was strained with fear she had never heard before. The communication center must not fall. Whatever happens to the rest of us, you must protect those ancient systems. They may be our only hope. The connection cut to static dot when monsters come to paradise. The invaders called themselves the Skarn Empire, though the Nexarians would not learn this until much later. They were a species that had evolved, not from peaceful herbivores, like the Nexarians, but from apex predators on a world of endless storms and brutal competition. Their skin was thick as armor, mottled gray and black, and their eyes burned with the cold intelligence of creatures that saw all other life as either prey or obstacles. General Voss Grintik stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, watching his forces tear through Nexer Prime's pathetic defenses. The planet had no military, no weapons, no fighters. It was like attacking a garden full of flowers. His warriors were enjoying themselves, competing to see who could destroy the most beautiful structures, who could spread the most terror. General, one of his officers reported, the population centers are offering no resistance. They're just ... running and hiding. Grimtak's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. Perfect. Fear makes them easier to process. Begin harvesting operations on schedule. I want every useful resource stripped from this world within 3 rotations. The Skarn didn't just conquer worlds. They consumed them completely. Every mineral, every biological resource, every technological component was stripped away and transported to their ever-expanding empire. The native populations were either enslaved or eliminated, depending on their usefulness. It was efficient, profitable, and had worked perfectly on 47 worlds over the past decade. But as Grintek watched his forces spread across the planet like a plague, he felt a strange unease. The intelligence reports on this system had mentioned something about ancient ruins, old technology from a civilization that had once been powerful enough to influence entire sectors of the galaxy. His scouts had found references to something called the human network, but the records were fragmentary and confused. He dismissed the concern. Whatever ancient power had once existed here was clearly long dead. If it had been a threat, surely it would have defended this beautiful world. The forgotten network awakens. Back in the communication center, Zara struggled to understand what was happening. The building's defenses, shields that had never been tested in actual combat, were beginning to fail under the constant bombardment. Crystal walls cracked and sang discordant notes as energy weapons carved through them. Outside, she could see the elegant spires of her city falling one by one, their musical waters now silent. But she remembered Elder Morin's words. The ancient systems must be protected. She ran deeper into the building, past the modern Nexarian equipment, toward the sections that hadn't been opened in centuries. Here, the architecture was different. The walls were made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light, and the corridors were straight and functional, rather than curved and artistic. This was the old section, built by the mysterious race that had once connected distant worlds across the Yahoo. Galaxy Dot at the center of the old section was a chamber that even the eldest Nexarians approached with reverence. It contained a single massive console, black as space itself, covered with symbols in a language that no living being could read. The Nexarians had always assumed it was some kind of monument, a relic of a dead civilization. But as Zara entered the chamber, running from the sounds of destruction above, the console began to glow. Panels of light appeared across its surface, displaying text in a dozen different languages. Most were unknown to her, but one she recognized. It was Old Galactic Standard, the trade language used by ancient civilizations. Thousands of years ago. The message was simple but shocking. Emergency protocol activated. Scanning for authorized users. Nexarian genome detected. Welcome to the Human Emergency Network. Humans. Zara had heard the name in history lessons, stories. So old they were considered myths. A species that had once been part of the great galactic community, known for their incredible adaptability and fierce protective instincts. But they had vanished from galactic affairs centuries ago, after some great betrayal by the Galactic Council. Most scholars believed they had retreated to their home system and died out, but the console was very much alive. Current threat level. Extinction event detected. Initiating emergency contact protocol. New panels appeared, showing a communication interface more advanced than anything Zara had ever seen. Without fully understanding what she was doing, she placed her hands on the control surfaces. The system responded immediately, scanning her thoughts and emotions, understanding her desperate need. State the nature of your emergency, a voice said. It was not the mechanical tone she expected from ancient technology. It sounded almost human, warm but serious. We're dying, Zara whispered, tears flowing down her face. They came from space. They're destroying everything. My people don't know how to fight. We never learned. We thought the galaxy was safe. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. There was silence for a long moment. Then the voice returned, and there was something different about it now. Something that made the hair on Zara's neck stand up. Message received and confirmed. Emergency protocols are active. Threat assessment in progress. Hold your position. Help is coming. The console went dark, but Zara could feel something had changed. In the deepest part of space, something ancient was waking up. The impossible. Response General Grimtech was reviewing casualty reports when his sensor officer began making alarmed clicking sounds. General, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. More refugees attempting to flee? Grimtech asked without looking up from his datapad. No, sir. These signatures are impossible. They're showing power outputs that exceed our entire fleet combined. Now Grimtech looked up. On the main display, space itself seemed to be twisting. Points of light appeared in the darkness, growing larger and brighter. But these weren't the white or blue lights of normal ships emerging from hyperspace. These lights were golden, and they pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. How many contacts? Grimtech demanded. The sensor officer's voice cracked with fear. 12. No, 20. Sir, I can't get an accurate count. The energy signatures are interfering with our sensors, but they're big, General. Bigger than anything in our databases. On Nexer Prime, Zara felt the communication center shake, but this time it wasn't from weapons fire. It was something else, something that made the very air vibrate with anticipation. She looked up through the cracked crystal ceiling and saw lights in the sky, golden lights that seemed to push back the darkness of the Skarn ships. The ancient console flickered back to life, displaying a single message in letters of burning gold. Earth Fleet Alpha has arrived. Stand by for hostile contact elimination. Asterisk, the storm arrives when Earth remembers its children. Admiral Sarah Chan stood on the bridge of the ESV Retribution, her weathered face illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. At 65, she was old by military standards, but her dark eyes still held the sharp intelligence that had earned her command of humanity's most secret project. For 30 years, she had waited in the void between stars, commanding a fleet that officially didn't exist, preparing for a day that might never come. Behind her, the bridge crew worked with the quiet efficiency of professionals who had trained for decades, but never expected to see actual combat. They were the children and grandchildren of Earth's greatest military minds, volunteers who had given up normal lives to serve in the hidden fleet that protected humanity's greatest secret. Earth had not retreated from the galaxy in defeat, as most alien civilizations believed. Earth had retreated in preparation. Ma'am, Lieutenant Commander Park reported from the sensor station. We're receiving telemetry from the emergency beacon. The threat appears to be a Skarn harvesting fleet. 12 capital ships, approximately 200 support vessels. Chun nodded grimly. The Skarn Empire was known to Earth's intelligence services. They were efficient, ruthless, and had been expanding toward human space for the past decade. Eventually, Earth would have had to deal with them. But this was not how she had expected the confrontation to begin. Ma'am, Communications Officer Torres added, the beacon was activated by an Exarian civilian. The species has no military capability. This is a complete extinction scenario. Xion closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the words that had guided Earth's policy for 3 centuries. We do not start wars, but we finish them. We do not seek conquest, but we protect the innocent. We are the shield that guards the peaceful against the predators of the void. General quarters, she ordered. Signal the fleet. We go in dark and quiet. No warnings, no negotiations. These monsters chose to prey on the defenseless. Show them why that was a mistake. The ghosts reveal themselves in space above Nexer Prime. The Skarn fleet suddenly found themselves facing an impossibility. The golden lights had resolved into ships, but ships unlike anything in their databases. They were enormous, easily 3 times the size of the largest Skarn dreadnought, but they moved with a grace that seemed to defy physics. Their hulls were pearl white with veins of gold that pulsed like living arteries, and their design spoke of technology so advanced it might as well have been magic. General, Grimtech stared at the tactical display with growing horror. Identification. Protocols now. Who are they? No response to standard queries, General. Their ships don't match any known design. But, sir, I'm detecting weapon signatures that are off our power scales. Impossible. No civilization in this sector has that. kind of technology. Sir, incoming transmission. Audio only. A bridge fell silent as a human voice filled the space. It was female, calm, and utterly without mercy. Skarn vessels, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have committed acts of genocide against a peaceful species under humanity's protection. You have 10 seconds to begin immediate evacuation of this system before we demonstrate why that was the last mistake you will ever make. Grimtack's mandibles spread in what his species considered a war grin. Humans? The cowards that fled the galaxy centuries ago? Open fire. Show these has-beens what real warriors can do. The Skarn fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, kinetic missiles, energy beams that could crack a planet's crust. The space between the fleets lit up like a miniature. Star as thousands of weapons fired simultaneously. The human ships didn't even slow down. Demonstration, what happened next, would be studied by military historians for generations. The human fleet moved through the Skarn barrage like it was nothing more than a light rain. Energy shields that seemed to bend reality itself deflected weapons that should have been devastating. The few shots that penetrated the shields struck hulls that absorbed the impact without showing so much as a scorch mark. Weapons free, Admiral Chun said quietly. Show them mercy. They didn't show the Nexarians. The human ships opened fire. They didn't use the flashy energy weapons that most civilizations favored. Instead, they fired solid projectiles at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Each projectile was no larger than a human fist, but when they struck, they released energy equivalent to small nuclear weapons. The laws of physics became weapons in humanity's hands. The first Skarn ship to die was a heavy cruiser called the Blood Drinker. The human projectile struck its forward section and instantly vaporized everything in a sphere 50 meters across. The ship folded in on itself like paper being crumpled, its hull unable to withstand the sudden loss of structural integrity. But the humans weren't finished. As the Blood Drinker died, every human ship in the fleet fired simultaneously. The effect was devastating beyond comprehension. In the span of 30 seconds, the entire outer perimeter of the Skarn fleet simply ceased to exist. 47 ships that had taken decades to build and represented the technological pinnacle of their civilization were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Mother of storms, one of Grimtack's officers whispered. What are they? The tactical display updated, showing the human fleet reforming into a perfect sphere around the remaining Skarn vessels. They weren't trying to escape. They were being contained. General, the communications officer reported, voice shaking, the humans are hailing us again. Admiral Chun's voice returned, but now there was something in it that made even the battle-hardened Skarn feel afraid. Your outer perimeter has been eliminated. Your retreat is cut off. You have approximately 43 ships remaining. I'm going to give you one more chance to surrender and face trial for your crimes. Otherwise, we will demonstrate that what you just witnessed was us being gentle. First contact on the surface of Nexar Prime. Zara watched the battle through the communication center's remaining sensors. What she saw defied everything she thought she knew about the universe. The Skarn fleet, which had seemed impossibly powerful, just minutes ago, was being methodically destroyed by ships that fought like living beings rather than mechanical constructs. The ancient console chimed softly, and a new voice spoke. This one was different from the emergency protocol. It was younger, warmer, unmistakably human. Hello, Zaraketh of Nexar Prime. My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez. I'm a xenobiologist with the Earth Defense Fleet. Are you injured? Are there other survivors in your area? Zara's voice caught in her throat. She was speaking with a human, a member of the legendary species that had just saved her world. Yes, I'm unharmed. There are others hiding in the lower levels, But the city ... our beautiful city. I know, Dr. Vasquez said gently. We've seen what they did. I'm sorry we didn't arrive sooner. But Zara, I need you to listen carefully. We're going to be sending down medical teams and emergency supplies. Can you help coordinate with other survivors? Yes, of course. But why? Why did you come? We're strangers to you. There was a pause, and when Dr. Vasquez spoke again, her voice carried the weight of centuries. Because that's what humans do. We don't abandon those who cry out for help. We made a promise long ago to be the shield that guards the peaceful against the darkness. Today, we keep that promise. Above them, the battle was entering its final phase. General Grintek, faced with the complete annihilation of his fleet, had chosen pride over surrender. The remaining Skarn ships charged the human line in a desperate final assault. They died with honor, but they still died. Admiral Chun watched the last Skarn vessel explode into fragments and immediately turned her attention to the planet below. Medical teams to the surface immediately. Begin search and rescue operations. And someone get me a full damage assessment. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with here. As human shuttles began descending toward Nexar Prime, carrying aid and hope to a world that had lost both, Chun allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The fleet had remained hidden for 3 centuries, growing stronger, waiting for the moment when they would be needed. That moment had come, and humanity had answered. But as she looked at the tactical displays, showing the vastness of space around them, she knew this was only the beginning. Other worlds were crying out for help. Other predators were stalking the innocent. And now that Earth had revealed itself, the galaxy would never be the same again. In the distance, sensors detected the energy signatures of more ships approaching. Not Skarn this time. These were vessels from a dozen different civilizations, all drawn by the energy emissions of the battle. News of humanity's return was already spreading across the galaxy at the speed of light. Admiral Chun smiled grimly. Let them come. Let them see what happened to those who preyed on the defenseless. Let the word spread to every corner of the galaxy. Earth was awake. Earth was armed. And Earth was no longer hiding. The age of human protection had begun.